children get a strong immune response from a smaller dose of the vaccine. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
It's good news for parents of children from 5 years old who want to get them protected against the coronavirus. Drug companies Pfizer-BioNTech announced Monday that a lower dose of their vaccines, a third given to adults, is safe and provides a robust immune response in 5 to 11-year-olds. Nearly 2,300 children between the ages of 5 and 11 were in the trial, with two-thirds getting the vaccine. Next, the companies will submit the data to the FDA and regulatory agencies to ensure it's fine to proceed in that age group. It's a big step in the process for getting young school children vaccinated.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, looking in more depth at the fury of the French over last week's announcement of a new defence partnership between the US, the UK and Australia. It undermined years of negotiations between Paris and Canberra. And French President Emmanuel Macron was, US officials concede, given no advanced warning that the agreement had been sealed at the cost to France of its largest defence contract.
Have been stabbed in the back by our closest allies.
Gérard Darrot is a former French ambassador to the United States. He says the anger in Paris is real and runs deep.
For us, the contract was the basis of an Indo-Pacific strategy. We considered that Australia was the pillar of our Indo-Pacific presence. Macron and the previous president went to Australia, 20 hours of flight. We had a lot of meetings between ministers. Our navies were training together. Suddenly, the strategic partnership is thrown away, and we discover that our closest allies have been plotting not only to take the contract, but also to exclude us from the partnership.
It is still very unclear why the Biden administration gave the French no warning of the announcement, nor why President Biden himself failed to address the issue directly when he met President Macron at the G7 in Cornwall earlier this summer. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the top news again. The U.S. will soon allow foreign nationals to enter the country if they show proof of vaccination against COVID-19, as well as a recent negative test for the virus. Canadians are voting in a hotly contested general election to decide if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will serve another term in office. And Pfizer-BioNTech has announced their COVID-19 vaccine is effective in children ages 5 to 11. And that's the latest feature story news. Rebecca Foster reporting.
Hundreds of exasperated Americans confirmed Thursday that, for fuck's sake, the article they just clicked on is actually a stupid video.
I clicked on the story thinking I'd be in and out of there in 30 seconds, but then that little buffering thing popped up and I was like, here we go.
Quickly hitting the mute button after being disoriented by a loud blast of noise from some stupid ad for Hotels.com, many of the deceived then scanned the webpage for some corresponding write-up so that they could simply read in peace, but reports indicated that would just be too convenient, wouldn't it?
Look, I don't want to watch a report or interview or panel discussion or whatever the hell this is. I just want to skim an article real quick and move on with my day. This is bullshit.
After seriously considering hitting the back button on their browsers, sources say the majority of readers decided to just let the video play out.
You know what? I'll watch the thing, and I'll probably watch the next video that automatically loads afterwards. Me.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. It's Free Talk Live. Open phones for you. If you want to join us here, as always, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
And Bonnie.
Stuff to talk about include, it's apparently Magic Mushroom Day. Bonnie, you're going to be telling us more about that here in a little bit. And that's good news. But first, something that's not so good about a whistleblower. You've heard of Edward Snowden. A lot of people have heard of Edward Snowden. It was back in 2013 when Edward Snowden revealed all kinds of, interesting information and for a lot of people, shocking information that the NSA was spying on Americans and some of the tools that they had in order to do that. The government, of course, government gang in Washington, D.C., rewarded Edward Snowden by tracking him down halfway across the world and basically preventing him from leaving where he had managed to escape to, which was Russia at the time.
Is he still in Russia?
He's still in Russia, yeah. Luckily, he was joined by his, I believe, fiancée, maybe now wife. So what looked like might have been something that broke them up. They stayed together through all the difficulties, which is nice. But he's stuck there. He can't get on an airplane and leave because he's worried, I think, that the federal government is going to force the airplane down and force him off of it and then throw him into a cage.
Yeah.
Because the U.S. federal government doesn't treat whistleblowers real nice. And here's the latest example of that. The story coming from whistleblowersblog.org. Daniel Hale received a prison sentence of 45 months this summer, followed by 3 years of supervised release, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. Earlier this year, he pleaded guilty to illegally obtaining classified national defense information and disclosing it to a reporter. He had served in the Air Force from 2009 to 2013. He later deployed to Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan in 2012 and was honorably discharged the following year, according to the AP. After his service, he worked at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, or the NGA, as a defense contractor, and the Department of Justice alleges that he began communicating with a reporter beginning in April of 2013, while he served in the Air Force and assigned to the National Security Agency, so also working with the NSA. The DOJ states that while he was working with the NGA, the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, in February of 2014, he printed 6 classified documents unrelated to his work and soon after exchanged a series of messages with the reporter. Each of the 6 documents printed were later published by the reporter's news outlet. The DOJ also states that Hale printed 36 documents from his top-secret computer, including 23 documents unrelated to his work. Of those 23, he provided at least 17 to the reporter or the online news outlet, which published the documents in whole or in part. And those were top-secret documents. When he pled guilty in March, he admitted to downloading...
What were they about? Sorry.
They some of them were apparently contained information about the protocol for ordering drone strikes and shed light on civilian casualties and internal military debates over the accuracy of the intelligence. And, of course, it was just, last week, I think, that the Pentagon admitted to murdering people. Of course, it's not murder when they do it, but taking innocent life in their very final strikes that they did. And I don't know if it was a drone strike or what. I didn't read all the details on the exact method of destruction, but they killed, I think it was 7 children in Afghanistan.
It was 7 people and included children, but
Yeah.
I don't think it was just children.
Either way, children were killed and innocent people were killed. And so this guy tried to shed some light on that whole process.
But that's none of the American people's business, even though we pay for it.
That's what the government wants you to believe, and they're going to punish him now with 45 months in federal prison as a result of this. So basically the next 4 years of his life. And federal prison only has an 85% good time rule, so if you're a good little boy in prison, you get out 85% after you're done serving 85% of the term, but then he's got 3 years basically on probation after that. He did file a handwritten letter to the court that went into detail about his motivations for leaking the documents. This was before sentencing. He wrote about his role as a signals intelligence analyst at Bagram Air Base, where he was, quote, made to track down the geographic location of handset cell phone devices believed to be in the possession of so-called enemy combatants, unquote.
In what country?
This is Afghanistan.
Oh, okay.
He explains the chain of action that would occur once he acquired information about a targeted cell phone and tells the story of the first drone strike that he witnessed while stationed in Afghanistan. Quote, since that time and to this day, I continue to recall several such scenes of graphic violence carried out from the cold comfort of a computer chair. He said further, not a day goes by that I don't question the justifications for my actions, but how could it have been considered honorable of me to continuously have laid in wait for the next opportunity to kill unsuspecting persons who, more often than not, are posing no danger to me or any other person at the time?
Oh, did he not realize that the judges he was writing to work to prop up that system and don't care about morality?
Yeah, I mean, when you're facing sentencing on a guilty plea, it's really all you can do. I mean, you are essentially, in the federal system, from what I understand, when you take a guilty plea, you don't get any kind of deal that the prosecutor gives you. The deal is they're going to drop some of the charges, and then you get stuck with whatever you're pleading to, and then it's all up to the judge. So the judge can go light on you, depending on what the sentencing guidelines are, or they can throw the book at you. You don't know what the judge is going to do before you take the plea. You're just sort of taking the plea, and you're essentially throwing yourself on their mercy. So anything that you can do to appeal to whatever shred of humanity that person may still have is all you got. He said he also discussed the gruesome details of other drone strikes that he was a part of and how they affected him and his attitude towards the U.S. drone program. He wrote in his letter, quote, "Left to decide whether to act, I could only do that which I ought to do before God and my own conscience. The answer came to me that to stop the cycle of violence, I ought to sacrifice my own life and not that of another person." He said further, "I contacted an investigative reporter with whom I had established a prior relationship and told him I had something the American people needed to know." But how many people out there know this guy's name? Daniel Hale. Had you ever heard it before?
No.
Are there people out there listening in this audience that have followed the Hale case? If so, if you want to comment, you're welcome to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. But he definitely did not get the level of attention that, say, an Edward Snowden did. Of course, Julian Assange is also another person that the federal government would love to throw into a cage for his involvement in helping then Bradley Manning, now Chelsea Manning, reveal their information. So this is not uncommon, of course, for the U.S. federal government to target somebody and punish them for revealing the truth about their operations. AP News reported during his sentencing, Hale told the district judge, Liam O'Grady, that he, quote, felt compelled to leak information to a journalist out of guilt over his own participation in a program that he believed was indiscriminately killing civilians in Afghanistan far from the battlefield.
Wow. What? I mean, he obviously knows.
He did it.
Yeah. I said he believes, but yeah. I was just saying, wow.
It is wrong to kill, he told the judge. It is especially wrong to kill the defenseless. In regards to Hale's leaking of the documents, the judge told him he could have pursued other avenues instead of going to the press with classified documents, like resigning from his job or informing his commanders that he was, quote, not going to do this anymore, unquote, according to the AP.
But that wouldn't change anything. They'd just fill in his spot with a new automaton.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no sort of internal method that is going to reform the military.
And also the United States citizens who are paying for this would have no idea still.
Correct. And most of them have no idea because the mainstream media did virtually little with this particular story, which is why when I saw the news that he'd been sentenced, I'd seen something about it prior to his sentencing. I'd saw the story like when he was taking the guilty plea earlier this year, but I had never heard anything about him prior to that. Prior to him taking a plea on this, never heard word one about this particular story. But, the idea that you're going to, go to some military brass and complain about killing innocent people and have that have some sort of an effect on the way the military operates is just absolutely ridiculous. And we can tell you a little bit more about what happened with his sentencing here. Again, 45 months in prison. That's years from this man's life for revealing the truth about drone strikes against the innocent. You can share your thoughts. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Open phones here if you want to join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And, of course, you can bring up anything that you want. We're talking about another whistleblower. He's going to prison. Maybe you've heard of him, but you probably haven't if you're paying attention to mainstream media. Whistleblowersblog.org has this story, not exactly a mainstream media source, although to their credit, the Washington Post has reported on him. The AP has reported on him. Daniel Hale is going to prison for 45 months, and that is, years of his life. Then he'll have 3 more years after that on supervised release, which is, a highly controlled probationary situation. He'll probably have a ankle monitor or whatever other nonsense that they want to shove down his throat, all because he revealed his experience in killing innocent people with drone strikes over in Afghanistan.
And he did it in the only way that could possibly make a difference.
Which is to say, he released the information to a journalist, and that's, of course, why he's being punished. The judge in the case, Liam O'Grady, district court judge in the U.S., said that he could have done something else instead of going to the press. He could have resigned from his job, as though that would do anything at all. As you pointed out, Bonnie, they would just replace him with some automaton who would mindlessly press a button and kill innocent people. We'll tell you more about his story here, and of course you can share your thoughts. Also, want to let you know about Bitcoin.com. They are a great source for learning about cryptocurrency. You can go and click on Get Started and learn about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Right now, Bitcoin went down overnight. It's down to like 44,000, I think, today per coin. It has been as high as 47,000 within the last 24 hours. So maybe that's a good time to get some if you can afford to grab some Bitcoin. Remember, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. And those are some of the basics that you need to learn if you don't know those things. Get on over to Bitcoin.com. Click Get Started at the top of the page. There's introductory videos there that you can watch as much as you like. The first one, I think, is 3 minutes long, so not a huge investment of time for you. Plus, if you're not brand new to crypto, you want to get the latest news headlines, you can go to news.bitcoin.com. And you can find those there every single day. That's news.bitcoin.com. The judge, according to whistleblowersblog.org, he imposed a punishment that was harsher than the 12 to 18-month term that the attorneys for Daniel Hale were requesting. But apparently the 45-month sentence was still, quote, significantly more lenient than the longer sentence sought by prosecutors. So I guess they wanted to put him away for, a decade or more. And instead, he'll only be spending 4 years behind bars. In an article about the sentencing, The Intercept provided an update in late August that Judge O'Grady dismissed the 4 remaining charges against Hale. He was charged under the Espionage Act, which, quote, has been long decried by whistleblowing advocates as a draconian measure used to unfairly punish whistleblowers. Additionally, court papers never specify the recipient of the leak, but AP News states that details about the case make it clear the documents were given to Jeremy Scahill, a reporter at The Intercept, who used them as a part of a series on critical reports on how the military conducted drone strikes on foreign targets. AP News reports that because Hale openly acknowledged to leaking the documents, the arguments at the sentencing focus more on his rationale for his behavior and what role that should play in the sentence calculation. His lawyers argued he was motivated by his own conscience and that his leaks didn't jeopardize national security, while the prosecutors painted Hale as eager to ingratiate himself with journalists. Hale, however, described himself as racked with angst over the role that his actions may have played in the taking of innocent lives. And that may be one reason why a lot of U.S. military people, when they come back from places like Afghanistan, kill themselves.
It definitely is. I won't say who, but somebody in my family who was in Vietnam, he was ordered to kill kids, and
oh my gosh.
He's just like a complete wreck. He's just like a complete, like he cries about it all the time.
Yeah, I can't imagine how horrifying that must be to relive, to go through the first time, and then to have to relive it and live with yourself like that. It's just absolutely horrifying. If you want to weigh in, you can hear the number 603-283-6160. He said during his sentencing that he wanted to dispel the idea that drone warfare keeps us safe. And who in their right mind would think that drone warfare is doing anything to, quote, keep us safe?
In other countries.
Right. I mean, thousands of miles away.
Yeah, striking poor people that have no ability to harm Americans all the way over here.
Clearly, because they haven't. If you look at the last 20 years of the war in Afghanistan, how many times have Afghani people come to the United States, or Afghans already living in the United States, how many times have they engaged in terroristic strikes? They haven't. I don't even know if they were involved in 9/11. Weren't those mostly Iraqis or Iranians?
It was George Bush.
Well, certainly there are a lot of theories behind 9/11. But I don't think the Afghanis had anything to do with it, if I recall correctly. Now, if you want to, and either way, the ones that did have if they did have something to do with it, they're dead. And we haven't had any issues since then. So the whole idea that bombing innocent people, or even bombing so-called bad guys half a world away is going to keep people safe is ridiculous. And I think Ron Paul wrote a book about that, if I recall correctly. Blowback? Was that Ron Paul? No, I think Ron Paul cited the book Blowback on stage during his presidential campaign and recommended that people who believe this fallacious idea that bombing people around the planet is going to keep us safe should read that. Because
well, Ian, they hate us for our freedom.
Do they? No, I don't think so.
The politicians hate us for our freedom.
The politicians definitely don't like freedom, and we're seeing a huge amount of that rolled back now, unfortunately. But according to AP News, Hale repeatedly took responsibility for his actions, but expressed more regret over wartime actions than the taking of papers. He also expressed that he was pained by the possibility that actions in the drone program could have emboldened terrorists in the United States, referring to the case of Omar Mateen, the gunman who massacred nightclub patrons back in Orlando, Florida in 2016, and had explicitly demanded during the shooting that the airstrikes needed to stop. And so that's what, when I talked about blowback, that's what blowback is, where you kill people in other parts of the world on the flimsiest of pretenses, and then, now you've created a terrorist. Now where somebody wasn't a terrorist before, you've now radicalized that person, and you've given them a reason to bomb or shoot or murder other people elsewhere in the United States, and Orlando is an example of that. So there apparently is a more recent update to this story with, again, Hale, he's in prison at this point, but a representative, Ilhan Omar from Minnesota, did voice her support in a letter to President Biden, urging him to use his pardoning ability on Daniel Everett Hale because he did the right thing. So whether or not Biden is going to do anything about this, I wouldn't hold my breath.
He hasn't pardoned anyone that I've heard of, right?
I don't know. They don't always write news stories about the people that presidents pardon. A lot of times pardons come toward the end of presidential careers. But if you know and you want to weigh in here, you can. Our number is 603-283-6160. We'll get to some of the good news. Bonnie, you're going to tell us about how it's Magic Mushroom Day. And then apparently Detroit is going to have mushrooms on the ballot coming up in November. We'll explain why coming up. It's Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. The U.S. will soon allow foreign nationals to enter the country if they show proof of vaccination against COVID-19, as well as a recent negative test for the virus. The move effectively ends travel bans for people traveling from the EU, China, and elsewhere that have been in place for over a year. Our U.S. correspondent Ira Spitzer reports.
American officials announced that starting in early November, foreign nationals can again fly to the country by presenting proof that they are fully vaccinated against COVID-19, as well as a negative COVID test taken within 3 days of departure. The current rules prevent most non-U.S. citizens who have been in the UK, the EU, China, India, and elsewhere in the past 14 days from entering the country. The announcement comes as welcome news for many around the world. European officials have been complaining about the restrictions for months, especially since Americans have largely been allowed to enter EU countries since earlier this year.
Canadians are voting in a hotly contested general election to decide if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will serve another term in office. Mr. Trudeau called the snap election to try and give his minority government a majority in Parliament. Nick Harper has more from Toronto.
Well, Justin Trudeau's old plan may end up backfiring. 5 weeks ago, when he called this snap election, he was looking in a strong position. He hoped to pick up seats to turn his minority government into a majority. But his popularity has plummeted because many people have wondered why he wanted to hold an election during a pandemic, especially with Canada currently experiencing a fourth wave of COVID-19. So things are very tight going in to this election day. The poll suggested that his Liberal Party is neck and neck with the Conservatives, led by Erin O'Toole. Turnout will be crucial for both parties, but in particular for Trudeau's Liberals, because traditionally low turnout, something that may happen during a pandemic election, has favoured the Conservatives.
Pfizer-BioNTech has announced their COVID-19 vaccine is effective in children ages 5 to 11. New trial data shows children get a strong immune response from a smaller dose of the vaccine. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
It's good news for parents of children from 5 years old who want to get them protected against the coronavirus. Drug companies Pfizer-BioNTech announced Monday that a lower dose of their vaccines, a third given to adults, is safe and provides a robust immune response in 5 to 11-year-olds. Nearly 2,300 children between the ages of 5 and 11 were in the trial, with two-thirds getting the vaccine. Next, the companies will submit the data to the FDA and regulatory agencies to ensure it's fine to proceed in that age group. It's a big step in the process for getting young school children vaccinated.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Of course, you can bring up absolutely anything that is on your mind. Freedom's Phoenix is a liberty-oriented news aggregation site. If you want the newest and freshest stories and perspectives on current events from those who value liberty, freedomsphoenix.com has it. Their daily dispatch is the best way to stay up to date on science, technology, historical findings, liberty news, government overspending, and the rise of the police state. It's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. That's freedomsphoenix.com. Whether you want to comment on blowback and whistleblowers, again, Daniel Hale sentenced to 45 months in prison earlier this summer for revealing the truth, or at least his experience, with bombing innocent people with drone strikes in Afghanistan, and the U.S. government gang paid him for his efforts by putting him in prison for the next several years of his life. It's Ian and Bonnie here in the studio. You can comment on that, which certainly is not an uplifting story, but it is a story that is, it speaks to the times that we're in. It speaks to the fact that this government is willing to cover up. And when I say this government, I'm not talking about like Joe Biden's United States government. I'm talking about this has been happening to him over multiple administrations. It started during Obama, and it continued during Trump, and it has continued during Biden. So it's not like you can just say, oh, well, it's just one president. No, this is the state. This is what states do. They're very secretive, and they're very violent, and they are out for your blood. And if they don't hurt you now, it's just because you're lucky. Maybe
if they aren't hurting you, they are using your tax dollars to hurt other people.
Yeah, and then if they are hurting you, they're using your tax dollars to hurt you.
Yep.
And it's sick. And I hope that we see some state somewhere, whether it's New Hampshire or Texas or California, successfully leave this abusive relationship to divorce DC, as we've been discussing.
Yes.
But Bonnie, you've got a more uplifting story for us here tonight. What's going on?
So I just wanted to mention, I don't have a story about this, but I wanted to mention that today is support and acknowledge, I think, Magic Mushroom Day, according to Paul Stamets, who is the king of mushrooms. He
really?
is a mushroom scientist, a mycologist. And if you're interested, you should watch his TED Talks, Paul Stamets' TED Talks about mushrooms. He just talks about
Stammitz?
No, Stamets.
Okay.
He has a mushroom hat that he wears all the time. He's totally weird and interesting, and he talks about all kinds of different uses for mushrooms, how he cured his mom's stage 4 breast cancer with mushrooms.
Really?
And anyways, he posted today that it's support Magic Mushroom Research Day, I think, or Awareness Day. Anyways, that's cool.
I support Magic Mushroom awareness.
Me too.
And not just for the fact of, it can be fun to trip on magic mushrooms, but because it can actually do some amazing things for people that we're just starting to discover. Probably some things that, humans from past generations, many, generations
like the 60s?
ago. No, I mean
kidding.
Way back. Probably realized about mushrooms.
Yeah.
Shamanic healers and things like that, using these things to treat various different issues, a lot of mental issues like PTSD. We were just talking about people in the military killing themselves because of the horrifying things that they've been through. Now, obviously, the best solution is to not put people through those situations in the first place. But if you've had a, awful situation in your life that has been traumatic, there have been studies done recently that show that psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, can be not only helpful, but can actually cure things like PTSD. And maybe you've got, more information about what's going on today. So it's just this one day, but then you had another related story, right?
Yes. Detroit is going to vote on decriminalizing psychedelics on November 6th.
Now I believe it's psychedelics that are plant-based, correct?
We can get into it.
Yeah, let's do that.
I read it before, but I forgot. It says a grassroots movement in Detroit, Michigan is leading a ballot initiative to make entheogenic plants and fungi the lowest law enforcement priority in the city. Spearheaded by Decriminalize Nature Detroit, the ballot initiative was approved by the state elections board last month after the advocacy group successfully obtained 3,600 signatures from residents. Justin Petty, also known as Mudu Baki, the spokesperson for D in Detroit, confirmed with Truffle Report that the voters will be deciding the future of personal psychedelic possession for the city on November 6, 2021.
That's pretty exciting, given that we've already seen people in cities like, I think it was Denver was first to do this, where they decriminalized. I don't know if it was
Portland?
Just magic mushrooms. No, Denver,
you're right.
Colorado. And I don't know what Portland's status is. I know Oregon, I think, has decriminalized all drugs, from what I understand. Small amounts, personal amounts of all drugs. And that was in the 2020 election. So we're coming up on the first year after decrim. So it's going to be interesting to look back on
already everyone in Oregon died.
No, everybody should be fine. In fact, I'm going to guess, I'll go out on this limb and guess that there are now fewer drug addicts in Oregon than there were before. Even though it's only a year in, I think that you're going to find more people have been able to go and get help before than they had ever done before, because they were afraid of being arrested for whatever their issues were. But we'll find out more as time goes on. But yeah, you certainly have not heard anything about Oregon becoming some sort of crazed drug den as a result of that.
And it would be consistent with what happened in Portugal.
Exactly.
Your
my prediction.
Yeah.
So,
I'm also excited about this Decriminalize Nature group in general. In general, I didn't realize that they had something to do with the writing of this article, but Truffle Report is the actual the news source. But I was looking at the comments on the Paul Stamets post that I saw that it's National Magic Mushrooms Day, and a lot of people on there were saying don't donate to MAPS, M-A-P-S, and I can't remember what that even stands for right now.
Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, I think.
Yes, it's that. People were saying don't donate to that. Donate to this one, DN, Decriminalize Nature, because apparently MAPS wants to make it, easier for the state to tax and profit off of. And they're also against decrim.
Really?
And then when I clicked on the Decriminalize Nature's Instagram, they have like a crypto donation link.
Nice.
So I already like them more.
Good.
Yeah. Want to keep going?
Glad. Yeah, I do want to keep going on this. I'm sorry to hear that about MAPS, although I guess I shouldn't be surprised. They're kind of trying to pander to the political class. We're respectable scientists, and we only think that these drugs should be used under specific, therapeutic circumstances, and we shouldn't just let people make their own choices for themselves. So that's kind of always been their political stance. They're a lot like, in that way, they're a lot like the, the MPP, Marijuana Policy Project, they almost never actually advocate for true freedom when it comes to marijuana. They've always advocated for regulations and controls and taxes because they are trying to, quote unquote, play the game where they're pandering to what they think politicians want. And they're not wrong to say that politicians want tax revenue. And so that's what they always propose tax proposals, and they're never behind anything like this, which would be, true decrim.
I thought this country was supposed to be about what the people want.
Well, it was supposed to be about freedom, but we can tell that hasn't worked out.
Yep. Well, going back to Detroit, it says, the ballot draft registered with the state agency reads, shall the voters of the City of Detroit adopt an ordinance to the 2019 Detroit City Code that would decriminalize to the fullest extent permitted under Michigan law the personal possession and therapeutic use of entheogenic plants by persons 21 years of age and older, make the personal possession and therapeutic use of entheogenic plants by persons 21 years of age and older the city's lowest law enforcement priority, and establish an entheogenic policy review panel to assess and report on the effects of the ordinance, ?
I hope that we get the results from this coming up in November. We'll also talk more about this and what it means. And, of course, you're welcome to weigh in here as well. The number, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. What are your thoughts on decriminalizing magic mushrooms and other psychedelic plants? Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Porkfest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Should you be able to earn an honest living free from senseless government interference? The Institute for Justice thinks so. That's why we've spent years defending hard-working men and women from pointless government regulations. Nationwide, IJ has created opportunity by reducing government power, but there is still more work to be done. Visit our website today at ij.org. Let IJ take care of the government so you can take care of your business.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here if you want. The number is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. We're going to continue with your calls, or get into your calls in just a moment, and then we can talk more about psychedelics. And there's now apparently a festival happening in Ann Arbor, which is, I guess, kind of like a suburb of Detroit. Or it's like its own city, but it's really close.
Never been to Michigan, so I don't have any idea about their geography.
It's where our friend and co-host Nobody is actually originally from.
Yep, so. Ann Arbor.
Yeah, and they're having an event called Enthea Fest coming up apparently this weekend.
Nobody would like that.
Yeah, he would. I wish we could actually have him here to talk about it, but the bail conditions are preventing that, sadly. But we can talk more about that on the way here. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. Again, 603-283-6160. And I want to say thank you to Nathan Dank, who is a Free Talk Live Platinum Amplifier. Nathan contributing at least $25 a month to the program to help us advertise, market, and promote Free Talk Live and get Free Talk Live on more radio stations around the country. You get some cool perks and some benefits for doing that. And Nathan, thank you for the support over there at amp.freetalklive.com. You can use PayPal, you can use debit card, credit card, whatever works there best for you over at ampamp.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phones and to your calls and thoughts. Scott is on the line listening or watching us on Twitch. Scott, you're on Free Talk Live in Wisconsin.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey, what's on your mind?
I have a lot of love and gratitude for what you guys do. I amp as well.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks.
Very good service that you guys provide. I love it.
I appreciate it.
I wanted to key in on the whistleblower you were talking about. What was the name again?
Daniel Hale. Sentenced to 45 months in prison.
Yeah. So I do remember back maybe 10 or so years ago, there was some blurb in the news where it was kind of a bunch of those drone operators that were, I guess they were kind of coming out and talking about it, that it they weren't doing lawful stuff, I thought, but I'm driving, so I can't look any of that up. But I wanted to say, well, I got in the military before September 11th, and it was probably about sometime in 2005, 2006, and we had orders passed down telling us, like, coming through the chain of command, it was no change in regulations or anything, and they were saying if you have an order and you believe it to be unlawful or something, well, just carry it out, and then after the fact, bring it up through your chain of command and do things like that. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. This is the moment to shine right here. You're going to be held, accountable for it if it's unlawful. So you always have a right to object to it. So
you're saying you as a military person would be held accountable for doing something that was unlawful, like drone striking.
If you were ordered to?
Well, if it's a little complicated. So if it's like under a wartime situation, it'd be disobeying an order that's in that situation, it's kind of a weird gray area maybe, but under most circumstances, I would say that you have, doesn't matter what the ranking officer is, you can stand up and you do not have to carry out an order because it's unlawful.
Well, is it unlawful? Because, I mean, it's not like there's any kind of punishment for the military brass that might be ordering these things. I mean, we just saw the whatever general, I don't remember his name, but
Millie.
I don't know. I don't pay attention to who these people are. They all change out like the deck chairs on the Titanic. But this general apologizing for killing innocents in the August 29th remaining attack on what they thought was, some sort of terrorist group, and it ended up being a group of innocent people with a truck full of water. I don't think anybody's going to prison for that.
Right, and that's the other thing I was going to say is kind of like there probably is no repercussions for certain actions, and a lot of things are swept under the rug. Or early, the, I guess, 2003 and stuff, operations in Iraq, there was a lot of common knowledge of officers and people that were doing things the wrong way and kind of causing violence and stuff, and those were the ones that were promoted more and stuff like that.
Of course.
And there were, it was fitting a different objective that was going on, kind of,
So you finally got out of there?
Yep, and that's another thing I wanted to bring up was using, or if you totally disagree with something, like be a conscientious objector. I'm against war. I'm definitely against like preeminent strike and all that. Under Bush, we kind of like, oh yeah, that's what we're gonna do now. And it's like I saw a lot of things kind of shift in the way. I was in when they were kind of starting up a new organization for drone operators, and they threw that across us if we were interested in switching over to that or something, somewhere in the middle of, kind of by
They gave you a choice? They said, hey, do you want to go and move over to the drone division?
I think they were just kind of pushing all branches of the military and different groups or operators and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, I was, we're talking about whistleblowers. I have a heart for, like Edward Snowden and stuff. Like, I was almost scheduled to be at NSA, and it was kind of just after that when he kind of stepped forward on some of that stuff. So
did that?
Cool.
You said you were scheduled to almost go. Well, you were thinking of working for them, and then Snowden affected you?
I was almost. Yeah, I was working on taking up a duty station there and stuff, and it was always a possibility on the table for quite a few years. So, but I don't know, kind of glad I didn't. I don't know, whatever, because I see things kind of the right way.
What are you doing now? Now that you're not in the military?
I enjoy life. I definitely think that there's people that are in that. I think like you were talking about mushrooms, like good thing for PTSD. Let's tie that in, and that's really, every now and then that's a good way. It's a good thing to really therapeutically straighten somebody out. And I personally just saw somebody kind of really have an epiphany with it, and I was like, yeah, that's awesome. But just to get in touch with your local community, nature, find things, do something you love, and stuff like that.
I like it.
I do construction, I do music, I research a lot. And
it sounds like you're way more productive now. Thanks, Scott, for the call tonight. I definitely appreciate hearing from you. The number here is 603-283-6160. And yeah, if you're in the military, you don't have to feel like you're locked in there. There's so much outside of the military that you can do to actually bring value into people's lives and make some money while you're at it, because you've made people happy and you've given them something they were looking for, whether it be a product or service. You don't have to feel like you need to spend your whole life with the military.
Killing people.
Or whether you're killing people or packing boxes that then are unboxed and then used to kill, the things inside them used to kill people, you're supporting the killer. If you're in the military, you're either killing people or supporting the killers, right? That's pretty much the only two different types of jobs. Let's go to Zephin. He's in New Hampshire. Zephin, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey guys.
Hey.
So what I wanted to talk about was I'm sure that you've heard of the Firearms Policy Coalition. It's a gun rights group that's a lot more deserving of your money than the NRA. That's for sure. And I emailed them about a couple months ago because I was emailing a lot of nonprofits to see if they would take crypto. And they were one of the ones that actually responded and said, oh, we'll look into this. And then just out of the blue, about a week ago or so, they emailed me back, said that it was live. They wanted me to test it. And they used a platform called Engiven. So now, lo and behold, Firearms Policy Coalition now takes crypto. So it's a really exciting development. If anybody has crypto and they want to donate, I think that the link is just firearmsfoundation.org/crypto. But I just wanted to tell your listeners that so that they know that it's really easy to just send an email, and it can really have like a huge impact on these nonprofits and businesses too, in terms of accepting crypto. So just wanted to give that.
Yeah, you never know what one person, one request, one inquiry is going to make as far as a difference is concerned. But I got to say, I'm curious, is there a difference between Firearms Policy Coalition and Firearms Policy Foundation? Are they related?
Yeah, so one is essentially the group that focuses on the litigation, while the other one is like a separate entity that they set up for tax purposes. But
Zephin, thanks for the clue, man. If you had more to say, you're welcome to hang on. We can bring you back and talk more about guns and crypto coming up. Free Talk Live. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. The U.S. will soon allow foreign nationals to enter the country if they show proof of vaccination against COVID-19, as well as a recent negative test for the virus. The move effectively ends travel bans for people traveling from the EU, China, and elsewhere that have been in place for over a year. Our U.S. correspondent Ira Spitzer reports.
American officials announced that starting in early November, foreign nationals can again fly to the country by presenting proof that they are fully vaccinated against COVID-19, as well as a negative COVID test taken within 3 days of departure. The current rules prevent most non-U.S. citizens who have been in the UK, the EU, China, India, and elsewhere in the past 14 days from entering the country. The announcement comes as welcome news for many around the world. European officials have been complaining about the restrictions for months, especially since Americans have largely been allowed to enter EU countries since earlier this year.
Canadians are voting in a hotly contested general election to decide if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will serve another term in office. Mr. Trudeau called the snap election to try and give his minority government a majority in Parliament. Nick Harper has more from Toronto.
Well, Justin Trudeau's old plan may end up backfiring. 5 weeks ago, when he called this snap election, he was looking in a strong position. He hoped to pick up seats to turn his minority government into a majority. But his popularity has plummeted because many people have wondered why he wanted to hold an election during a pandemic, especially with Canada currently experiencing a fourth wave of COVID-19. So things are very tight. Going into this election day, the poll suggested that his Liberal Party is neck and neck with the Conservatives, led by Erin O'Toole. Turnout will be crucial for both parties, but in particular for Trudeau's Liberals, because traditionally low turnout, something that may happen during a pandemic election, has favoured the Conservatives.
Pfizer-BioNTech has announced their COVID-19 vaccine is effective in children ages 5 to 11. New trial data shows children get a strong immune response from a smaller dose of the vaccine. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
It's good news for parents of children from 5 years old who want to get them protected against the coronavirus. Drug companies Pfizer-BioNTech announced Monday that a lower dose of their vaccines, a third given to adults, is safe and provides a robust immune response in 5 to 11-year-olds. Nearly 2,300 children between the ages of 5 and 11 were in the trial, with 2/3 getting the vaccine. Next, the companies will submit the data to the FDA and regulatory agencies to ensure it's fine to proceed in that age group. It's a big step in the process for getting young school children vaccinated.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today looking in more depth at the fury of the French over last week's announcement of a new defence partnership between the US, the UK and Australia. It undermined years of negotiations between Paris and Canberra. And French President Emmanuel Macron was, US officials concede, given no advanced warning that the agreement had been sealed at the cost to France of its largest defence contract.
Have been stabbed in the back by our closest allies.
Gérard Darrot is a former French ambassador to the United States. He says the anger in Paris is real and runs deep.
For us, the contract was the basis of an Indo-Pacific strategy. We considered that Australia was the pillar of our Indo-Pacific presence. Macron and the previous president went to Australia, 20 hours of flight. We had a lot of meetings between ministers. Our navies were training together. Suddenly, the strategic partnership is thrown away, and we discover that our closest allies have been plotting not only to take the contract, but also to exclude us from the partnership.
It is still very unclear why the Biden administration gave the French no warning of the announcement, nor why President Biden himself failed to address the issue directly when he met President Macron at the G7 in Cornwall earlier this summer. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the top news again. The U.S. will soon allow foreign nationals to enter the country if they show proof of vaccination against COVID-19, as well as a recent negative test for the virus. Canadians are voting in a hotly contested general election to decide if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will serve another term in office. And Pfizer-BioNTech has announced their COVID-19 vaccine is effective in children ages 5 to 11. And that's the latest feature story news. Rebecca Foster reporting.
Like many young inner-city students, Chicago area high school sophomore Brandy Perkins struggles every day to motivate her teachers. The frustrated 16-year-old talked to Onion reporters this morning to discuss the challenges she faces in reaching out to her underperforming educators.
Connecting with the teachers gets harder and harder every year. We all come in every morning eager to learn, but most of the teachers just seem completely uninterested in education. One of my teachers, Miss Manley, has been particularly hard to work with. She was quiet at first, but she showed some potential. I thought maybe she just needed a little time to come out of her shell, but as the weeks went by, she just sat there listlessly at her desk, never talking or participating. It just makes you feel so helpless.
For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, kicking off the second hour of the program. You can join us here if you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's apparently Magic Mushroom Appreciation Day. And one of the things that I think should be appreciated about magic mushrooms is that they are able to help people with some serious mental issues. Things like PTSD, for instance. I remember there was a study we talked about years ago that showed that magic mushrooms in a relatively small clinical trial that they cured PTSD.
Wow.
That it wasn't just some sort of temporary treatment. It was something that was a permanent cure. And this is in people that, if I recall correctly, they had tried all kinds of kind of the standard medicine treatment approaches to PTSD, and those weren't working for them. So
yeah, I've heard, well, my doctor was just telling me that in a lot of cases to get into a medical trial for psychedelics, you have to have tried
everything else.
Yeah. My doctor is a huge advocate for psychedelics for mental health.
Yeah, that information is starting to come out. I mean, when you brought up the fact that it is apparently Magic Mushroom Appreciation Day, Bonnie, I pulled up some stories in the news, and just within the last week, there's something from The Guardian. Ecstasy, LSD, and magic mushrooms, are these drugs the future of therapy? So we can talk further about that. But what you brought up in the last hour was that Detroit voters come November are going to have the chance to vote on a decriminalization provision that would make the enforcement of the laws that prohibit, because like in most states, it's criminal to have any amount of any kind of psychedelics, what's considered psychedelic substance.
In all 49 states except Oregon.
Except Oregon, where they actually put in decriminalization last year. So that's also another interesting story. But it's still a criminal act, and so what they're saying is, okay, well, at least within the city limits of Detroit, if you get caught with, I think magic mushrooms were, I don't even know if you went through the list of what this would include.
No, it just said natural plant
and fungi.
Entheogens and fungi.
Yeah, so that would include mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms. That would include cacti, like psilocybin, or sorry, not psilocybin. That was the word I'm looking for.
I know what you're talking about. I just can't remember right now.
Yeah, it skipped my mind. It's right there on the tip
me too.
of my tongue.
You've almost having it.
Anyway, the buttons that you eat. I've never actually tried this stuff before. That mescaline comes from.
Yeah,
peyote.
Peyote. I knew it was a P.
Peyote. So that would be included, and there's another one that's pretty big that I'm
ayahuasca.
Right. Well, yeah, ayahuasca would be included in that too. Yeah, so DMT. In that way. So very, very interesting that this is happening. And apparently the story that I have about the EntheoFest, which is taking place, apparently it happened yesterday in
Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor already decriminalized magic mushrooms. According to the story, in October of 2020, they were the fourth city in the United States to decriminalize psychedelic. I guess they just specifically did psychedelic mushrooms there in Ann Arbor. So that is pretty interesting. The prosecutor there in Walton-Shaw County, Eli Savitt, previously said he does not, quote, plan to prosecute the use or possession of entheogenic plants in any other part of the county as well.
Wow, nice.
So that's pretty cool.
Oh, but didn't everybody in Ann Arbor die since that?
No. In fact, magic mushrooms are actually one of the safest drugs out there. If you pull up the chart, there's an interesting chart that it's probably like a decade old now, but it was Professor David Nutt, if I recall correctly. It's a funny last name. But Professor Nutt with 2 T's in the UK, he was a drug czar, basically. He was like the government's main drug, anti-drug guy or whatever, and he came out against the war on drugs. And he came out with this list of it kind of calculated the damage to the individual and the damage to, quote, society from each drug, and magic mushrooms, if I recall correctly, were at the bottom of the list. So meaning there was the least damage to the individual and the least damage to society for the use of magic mushrooms. So it's actually relatively safe. Now, look, I'm not saying go out there and, trip hard and possibly put yourself in danger, because these are very, very serious drugs. And
respect them.
Yeah, they need to be respected. Otherwise, you will have a very bad time. So, I'm not advocating crazy recreational use. I'm advocating taking your time and learning about these things, doing research, going to erowid.org, EROWID.org, researching any kind of chemical or plant that you plan to put in your body, and get some idea of what you're in for. Get in touch with people who've had experience with it before, have a trip sitter for your first time, and things like that. So being very, very cautious and making sure you have a good, safe set and setting in which to do these things. These are not things that should be taken lightly in any way, shape, or form. But they are very powerful, not just as far as the trip that you might be on, but also the effects that can have on a person who's, as we were saying, had things like PTSD or other, traumatic events in their life. These have shown some very, very interesting results, and we can talk more about that coming up. But was there more regarding what's going on there in Detroit that you wanted to share?
Yes, it says the ballot would allow personal possession and cultivation of sacred plant medicines, including psilocybin, iboga with an I. Iboga.
Okay, yeah, that's also something that there are like ayahuasca-like journeys that shamans will take you on, as I understand it, like down in Mexico for iboga. I don't know exactly how it's pronounced, and I don't know a lot about it.
Me either. I don't know anything about it. It says, including psilocybin, iboga, and ayahuasca, Becky says. He tells Truffle Report that this ballot initiative would also allow small businesses to conduct community-based ceremonies in the city.
Ooh, that's interesting.
I know that like in Nevada, well, I don't know if it's legal or not, but at like powwows, the Native Americans there do like family trips in their sacred settings. Like
I don't think I want to trip with my mom.
I definitely don't want to trip with my parents. I don't know, maybe. I don't know why I say that. It might be fun if they ever became that open-minded. I just know
that would be an indicator that their minds were open for sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
It says Becky shares that the nonprofit is working with political consultants, the nonprofit being Decriminalize Nature. The nonprofit is working with political consultants who, prior to collaborating with DN Detroit and DN National, were utilizing ballot language that went against the ethos and principles of DN in ensuring equitable access, including a limited participant task force and the continued criminalization of peyote cultivation. So I guess they're changing their minds.
So they updated the language to be more inclusive as a result.
Yes.
Okay, good. This sounds like a good group, Decriminalize Nature. I love the way they're positioning it, too. It's like, these are plants, okay? They're not, it's not like a pile of cocaine that's putting money into some kind of criminal cartel's pockets. And there's no one getting their heads cut off and put on pikes over, some local guy growing magic mushrooms in his basement.
And it's decriminalize it, like you took this nature and criminalized it. We want to undo that. Yeah.
Because that's the sane approach, is to stop putting peaceful people behind bars for altering their state of consciousness in a way that maybe society isn't used to. Maybe there's not a lot of public, pro magic mushroom propaganda out there. I mean, there's certainly plenty of pro-alcohol stuff, right? Like there's plenty of commercials, there's plenty of sponsorships, there's plenty of pushers out there, lots of bars and lots of people using it. It's probably used by 90% of the American population. So everybody's fine with alcohol. We understand that it's dangerous.
It's really dangerous, and it alters your state of mind a lot. Yeah.
And it is actually deadly. It can kill you.
You can overdose.
And that happens a lot for people. If you don't die, you can get pretty sick. And, I mean, who hasn't had that experience? with alcohol. One of the most deadly, horrible experiences you can have. There's more coming up here in moments. 603-283-6160. Decriminalize nature.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correa, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live on Magic Mushroom Appreciation Day. You can join us here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160 here in the studio with you. It's Ian.
And Bonnie.
Last year, we told you about Intercoin, which can help any business and organization launch their own currency or raise money using their own token. Now Intercoin.org has launched worldwide. Is there a token you want to launch or an app that you want to build? Go to Intercoin.org, enter your email, and the team will get in touch and learn about your needs. While you're there, if you want, you can get some of their investor tokens, the Intercoin investor token, for yourself. Head over to Intercoin.org. Bonnie, you've been telling us about some exciting potential news. I guess the news is that they're going to get this thing on the ballot.
Yeah, they're going to at least get to vote in Detroit to decriminalize entheogenic plants and fungi.
Right, so not just mushrooms, but other things. Iboga, I believe, was one of them. Ayahuasca, and I'm sure peyote is probably going to be in there. If it's a plant or if it's a fungi and it can get you high, then it's going to be decriminalized. I'm going to presume this is going to pass. I think that it's time for this. We saw earlier that the nearby city Ann Arbor in 2020 passed a decriminalization provision. We saw that Oregon statewide passed a statewide decrim provision for all drugs. That includes heroin for personal amounts. So you can't, you still can't be a dealer of heroin, but you can have it personally to use. And then I think it was Denver, Colorado that was the first to do magic mushroom decriminalization. I believe Santa Cruz, and now apparently...
Wasn't it Oakland?
Yeah, Oakland also, yeah. Santa Cruz and Oakland, I think, were not voted as far as the people were concerned, but it was city councils who voted for that.
Oh yeah, that's what this goes into next.
Okay.
It says, unlike most local decriminalized nature initiatives that were approved via city council resolutions, Detroit activists are opting for a ballot measure and letting the voters have a say, which I like because I want to know what amount of the population thinks.
Yeah.
I'm just interested. It says, Baki, which is a guy that works for Decriminalized Nature, shares that there's so much political turmoil in the city council and the council members are afraid to engage in discussions on the issue. Political capital.
Well, interestingly, at least, and it may be a difference between being in a place like Michigan versus California, but out in California, the city councils, I believe, were unanimous. So there wasn't even a dissenting vote. And that's because I believe it was probably Decriminalized Nature or some other group like them brought in, they brought in people who were like military veterans. And like it or not, if somebody's a military veteran, politicians have to kind of like give them special deference, because they have to pander to how much they love the military or whatever. And so when a military veteran goes in there and says, yeah, magic mushrooms helped me with my PTSD or, whatever other issues that it helped them with, beat my alcoholism, beat my drug addiction. Because that's another thing that mushrooms have been used for, is to help treat people with drug addictions and cigarette smoking and alcohol addictions. And so if you get somebody up there and testify in front of a group of politicians, it's hard for them to come out and say, I think that military man should be he should be suffering. They can't do it. So they all voted for it.
Nice. It says, that said, the ballot language continues to align with DN's mission to make personal possession of natural entheogens and fungi the lowest law enforcement priority. To take this further, Baki shares that the ballot measure also includes objectives similar to what Oakland has been attempting in the hope of expanding their psychedelic decriminalization. Similar to Oakland's community healing initiative, the ballot includes a provision for local community-based ceremonies and social sharing, or a gift model. There's a provision of gift model in which people give away whatever they produce and allow traditional practitioners doing it, ceremonies, and being able to sustain themselves, Baki says. This language, he shared, is framed around the FIFO business model, which stands for first in, first out. He adds, here in Detroit, we are on the lookout for any type of licensing structures which will create a barrier of entry to people, whether you'd have to pay to participate or pay to be considered for this. We want to make sure that there are no artificial barriers put up that will limit people.
Good for them. And I totally agree, and that's why I have supported the decriminalization path instead of legalization here in New Hampshire. And I'm glad that we actually haven't seen, even though a lot of people said, oh, New Hampshire, you guys are behind the ball when compared to Massachusetts, Maine, Vermont, all of which have had some sort of legalization provisions put into place. And the thing is, Massachusetts, Maine, these are just like what you were just talking about, where there's restrictions. You cannot, for instance, open up a medical, or not medical, but a legalized facility for distribution of cannabis if you're a felon. If you've already been busted at some point for selling cannabis, you're excluded, even though you're the perfect person. If you've been a cannabis dealer in the black market, you should be somebody who is now able to go legal. But no, if you've got a felony on your record, you're excluded from potentially being able to open up a facility. So that's just one example. And of course, it costs a lot of money to jump through whatever licensing hoops and have all the official government-approved equipment from whatever government-approved vendors and dealers. And it's a whole control grid, a whole control structure that needs to not be there at all. If you want to actually have freedom, then decriminalization is the right way to go, to end criminalization of the possession of these things and to end the criminalization of the distribution, which is what they're talking about with the giveaway model. And it's kind of like it's a way around, we're not selling it, we're giving it away, but there's some other way to reward them. Now, usually the laws have...
Like you can donate.
Yeah.
You gave me this and I'm just going to donate to you for your service or something.
Usually there's like carve-outs in the law, or that there's provisions in the law that make that kind of stuff illegal, to say like, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, this is a free bag of weed or, free magic mushroom, but, here's an ice cube that you can pay $30 for or something like that, right? Like the lawmakers have figured that out, that people are going to do things like that, and they prohibited those sorts of behaviors. So it sounds like the language of what they're doing here is going to somehow allow for some of that, to allow for people to donate to the people who are giving away magic mushrooms, because it takes time. It takes effort. It takes some expertise. Magic mushrooms aren't, I've never had any experience growing them, but I would imagine growing a spore, is a very, very precise thing. You've got to have a very precise growing environment that's got to be right.
Growing like mushrooms for food is supposed to be pretty hard.
Yeah, and so you want to do it for psychedelic purposes. You really got to know your stuff. There's going to be some trial. There's going to be some error. And
who wants to do something like that for free?
And that takes time, it takes effort, and it has costs associated with it.
Those interferences in the market are going to make things less efficient and less mushrooms get out to people.
Right, and the mushrooms may not be as good. I mean, again, having competition means you're likely going to get more choices in the marketplace. And so at least they're going to somehow allow these people to get compensated, even if it's not directly. It won't be that you'll just go in and give them $50 and get some shrooms. It'll be some other means of doing it. But we'll explore further on this, and your thoughts are certainly welcome as well. The number is 603-283-6160. Do you think this is a bad idea to decriminalize nature? It's Free Talk Live.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The S&P 500 has posted its worst trading day since May. September has been a tough month thus far for U.S. stocks, and Monday's sell-off was fueled by concerns over China's property market. William Denzelo reports from New York.
Asian markets fell sharply on Monday on fears that China's biggest property developer Evergrande Group could default on its debt. That concern was shared on Wall Street, with the S&P 500 closing the day down at 1.7%, its worst daily performance since mid-May. The Dow fell 1.8%, registering its worst trading day since July. The Nasdaq also fell 2.2%. US investors are also eagerly awaiting news out of the Federal Reserve's two-day meeting that kicks off on Tuesday.
The Biden administration says it will lift the ban on fully vaccinated foreigners traveling to the U.S. from the EU and UK in November. Travelers will need to show proof of vaccination and a negative coronavirus test 3 days before coming to the U.S. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
This is a major diplomatic victory for the EU and the UK, who've been trying to end this travel ban for the last 18 months. It comes on the eve of a meeting between UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and US President Joe Biden, and many people feel that perhaps it has been done as a kind of a thank you to the UK for helping the US to sign a deal with Australia for building new nuclear-powered submarines, a deal that had been going to France. Another reason perhaps that the Biden administration decided to do this, the French have been very angry about what they see as a betrayal, and this now opens up the US to French citizens and those in the rest of the European Union.
Canadians are voting in a hotly contested general election to decide if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will serve another term in office. Nick Harper in Toronto says one issue is key in this election.
The big issue for voters in this election is the cost of living. Many people are angered by the fact that they have seen prices rise dramatically in recent months and in recent years. We currently have inflation at an 18-year high. House prices have risen 70% during the 6 years that Justin Trudeau has been in power, and his rivals say that he has done a terrible job with the economy, that he's racked up record levels of debt, about $1 trillion Canadian trying to fight the pandemic, and that his spending budget deficits are now at the highest level since the Second World War. People are also worried about climate change and about COVID-19, but it seems that the price of things is quite simply at the top of many voters' minds as they head to the ballot box.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything you want here on Magic Mushroom Day. Magic Mushroom Appreciation Day. Is that the full name of it?
There was we just named it our own thing. There was something else. It was like supporting and recognizing Magic Mushroom Day or something like that. It was a less catchy name than Magic Mushroom Appreciation Day.
MMAD. All right, so we've got more coming up here. If you want to comment, you're welcome to join us. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian and Bonnie here in the studio with the interesting news that the folks in Detroit, voters there, are going to have a chance to vote for or against decriminalization of not just magic mushrooms, but any psychedelic plants and or fungi coming up in November of this year. And if it goes anything like Denver or Oregon, it's going to pass. And I think there's a good chance that it will pass. Although I was just looking a moment ago, the New Hampshire state representatives have filed their legislation. That filing window opened up, I think, a week or so ago. And it may be closed by now at this point. So we may have seen all of the various different filings. I just went to the government website that shows just a quick sentence, basically, about what the bills are, so you don't get to read the bills yet. Those have to kind of be finalized and then posted. So it's going to be a few more months before those are fully available to be read. But there are multiple drug decriminalization bills that have been filed here in New Hampshire for the 2022 legislative session.
Nice.
That doesn't mean any of them are going to pass, but it does show that if there's more than one, then maybe there's some sort of emotion towards this.
But are they already past the point where we're going to get to vote on them?
You and I will not get to vote on these things. In New Hampshire, there are no ballot measures like what they're doing in Denver. So doesn't matter if you can go out and get 100,000 signatures for a thing. That will not help it get onto the ballot. There are things that can appear on ballots in New Hampshire. There are ballot questions that can appear, but the state representatives have to put them there, and they are only for constitutional amendments. So that's what the amendment is, to declare independence from the United States. If that gets through the legislature with over 60% of the vote from the legislature, it then goes to the ballot in front of the people, and then it has to get over two-thirds to pass. And then it's a constitutional amendment. So you're not writing a statute, you're not making a law or changing statute with that, you're just amending the Constitution. So some states do have ballot measures, and the New England states, I don't think, tend to have them. It's like, constitutions were written before that was kind of an idea, I guess, and ballot measures have been problematic in a lot of places, like Florida, for instance, where I'm from, where if you put something on the ballot, it almost always passes, no matter how crazy or how, big spending or pro-government or whatever it is. It almost seems like they pass everything.
Why?
In Florida. I don't know. And that's the way it was 20 years ago. Maybe it's different now than it was then. But arguably, the system where the system where you have state reps that have to put these things through, some could argue is actually a better system, at least in a place like New Hampshire, where the state reps are more representative here than they are in other states, because we have 400 state representatives here in New Hampshire. And I don't know how many you had in Texas, but I imagine it is a fraction, because there's no other state that comes even close to New Hampshire as far as the number of representatives.
And that's ridiculous, because New Hampshire has a smaller population than the city in Texas I'm from.
Yeah, well, and it's ridiculous in a good way, because it means that each of those...
I meant the fact that Texas is like that is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
good for New Hampshire.
Right. So in New Hampshire, each representative, because of the small population, represents roughly, and I'm putting represents in quotes because no human can actually accurately represent more than one other person, but they quote-unquote represent roughly 3,000 to 3,500 people, which is way less than, Texas, where there's 150 people in the Texas state representatives. And by the way, New Hampshire's state reps get paid $100 a year. And most state reps in other places get paid, full salaries. New Hampshire is just truly kind of a volunteer, almost volunteer legislature. I mean, $100 a year, and I think they get a small gas stipend as well. But you can do the math on Texas, right? Like, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Texas freedom, yeah, go to move to Texas," or Florida. They've been saying those things about Texas and Florida recently. A lot of people are on social media saying, "Where should I move to?" And of course, people chime in with Texas and Florida. And I don't know, if those people actually believe in that, or if they're just like federal agents that want to convince people to make themselves less effective. Because if you move to a place like Texas or Florida, you're moving to two of the largest populated states on the planet, right? Like, these are huge populations, 29 million people.
Yeah, I just saw that. So I did the math just now. If there's 150 representatives for 29 million, that means one person is representing 193,333 people.
As compared to
3,000.
3,000 and change here in New Hampshire. So that's a huge difference. And of course, you were in San Antonio when you lived in Texas, and that's not too far from Austin, right? Like, how far from Austin is
45 minutes to an hour, depending on traffic.
Okay, so that's actually fairly convenient to the state capital. But if you live over on the west side of Texas, if you live over in the northwest corner of Texas, you're going to be driving for hours and hours and hours before you can get to the state capital. What did it take us? Like 6 hours at least just to drive out
and it doesn't
of
even,
Texas?
It's not even the same land mass at that point. The fact that San Antonio and Lubbock, Texas are the same state blows my mind. Like, it doesn't feel like the same place. Sure. It's ridiculous. Like, they should have nothing to do with each other. They shouldn't be ruling over each other. It's just ridiculous. It's way too big.
Florida state legislatures, and I didn't get the Texas numbers on this, but Florida's get paid $29,697 a year, and they also get a per diem. So they get travel and subsistence. So they get basically room and gas stipend for traveling. So they make more than $29,000 a year, but that's a salary. I mean, it's not a whole lot of money, but with only 120 state representatives in Florida, they've got a lot more power. And again, there's about 21 or 20 million people in the state of Florida. So another similar situation where one of these state reps, quote unquote, represents a whole boatload of people. And again, where I was from in Florida, I was living in Sarasota, which was on the West Coast, south of Tampa. It would have taken me, if I had ever been so motivated as to drive to the state capitol for some reason, which I'd never done. The only time I think I went through Tallahassee was when I was driving out of Florida, and I don't even know if we drove through Tallahassee. I don't think I've ever even been to Tallahassee, but it would have taken like 4.5 hours.
What is Tallahassee in like the Panhandle?
Getting up there. Yeah, it's up there in the Panhandle.
Oh.
But yeah, it would have taken, most of a day, basically, most of an afternoon to drive up there. Here in New Hampshire, if you're in the southern tier of New Hampshire, which is the most populous portion of New Hampshire, basically you're no more than an hour and change away from the state capitol, no matter where you are. Whether you're in Keene, here where we are, in the west corner of the state, or you're over in Portsmouth, on the southeast corner of the state, it's an hour and 15 minutes. And you're at the state capitol, and you can talk to these representatives. You can know who they are. We know some of these guys and gals personally here. They actually are really in touch with the people that they represent. And it makes a huge difference. So, maybe we're going to see some movement on as far as more decriminalization is concerned, because that is definitely something that is a bipartisan issue. And in New Hampshire, there's a fair amount of Republicans. There's a lot of liberty Republicans here in New Hampshire. They get the issue of the war on drugs. They understand. And the Democrats and Republicans don't agree on a lot. But there's a number of Democrats that also get this. So you see that a lot of these bills for lessening prohibition here are bipartisan in nature. Anyway, we can continue on what's happening in Detroit and the Entheo Fest that is happened, or I guess just happened yesterday in Ann Arbor. What's that all about? You can share your thoughts. This is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There is no such thing as attention span, according to Jerry Seinfeld, who figures that people have an infinite attention span if you are entertaining them. Hey, he's kept us from channel surfing for several decades, and now he's making more millions as a Las Vegas headliner. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important, especially if you're looking for work. So choose every single word as though it was the last word the person you're speaking to will hear. Otherwise, it might be. Avoid redundancies such as added bonus, advance warning, end result, prior history, or personal belongings. And avoid cliches like the plague. Just kidding. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Hey, it's Free Talk Live. The number, if you want to join us here, 603-283-6160. There aren't a lot of reasons to stay in a place like Detroit. A lot of people have left Detroit and for greener pastures for good reason. But there is, a few bright spots there, including a ballot measure that's going to allow Detroiters to vote coming up here in November on decriminalization of not cannabis, because it's already legal. You can get legal cannabis in Michigan. But decriminalization of magic mushrooms and iboga and ayahuasca and peyote and any other plants or fungi that might be psychedelic in nature. And Bonnie, that's the story that you've been sharing with us here tonight. Was there more that you wanted to share from it?
Yes, and it's from the Truffle Report. It says psychedelics beneath the surface. That's the, I don't know what you call that, the headline.
The tagline.
The tagline for, yeah. They say there's a I already read that part. 2 Michigan senators also introduced a bill to decriminalize psychedelics at a state level earlier this month. Meanwhile, Ann Arbor is celebrating the 1-year anniversary of its council's unanimous approval of a resolution making entheogens the lowest law enforcement priority in September 2020. 2020.
Wait, this was, I missed that. Was that Ann Arbor you were talking about?
Yeah, so
okay.
2 Michigan senators introduced the bill. Oh wait, they're celebrating the 1-year anniversary of its council's unanimous approval of a resolution making entheogens the lowest law enforcement priority in September 2020. Last November, Washington, D.C. residents approved the ballot to decriminalize entheogens by a historic polling result of 76.2%. This movement was also led by Decriminalize Nature's D.C. advocates. That's all.
Ann Arbor, according to the story here at freep.com, the Detroit Free Press, on the Entheafest that just happened yesterday, which was, again, we're on an unofficial holiday here of Magic Mushroom Day today, and so yesterday from 11 a.m. to 2:22 p.m., they held an event at the University of Michigan, which had guest speakers, musical performances, and... well, they expected a crowd of up to 500, but I've not looked to actually see photos or see how the event went. But in what some are calling the new 420, the unofficial holiday celebrating cannabis culture, which we've, celebrated a number of times here in New Hampshire, 920, which is today, comes as politicians, businesses, and enthusiasts alike are pushing for the decriminalization of psychedelics because of their medicinal benefits. And so then they talk about how the Ann Arbor council did decriminalize psychedelic mushrooms in October of 2020, which made them the 4th city in the U.S. and the first in Michigan to do so. The prosecutor said previously there in that county that he doesn't plan to, quote, prosecute the use or possession of entheogenic plants in any other part of the county. Now, a prosecutor saying a thing isn't really what I would want to go on as far as, you know, feeling safe from prosecution, because he can change his plans at any moment, right? Like if they
someone you don't like.
Yeah, if they arrest somebody that the prosecutor's got an issue with, then he may change his plans. But psychedelics, as they say here in the Detroit Free Press, also known as entheogens. Do you know what that means, Bonnie?
Like the God within.
That's exactly what it means. Have been used for centuries in many cultures, but have been largely stigmatized in Western medicine. According to Jim Salame, Deputy Director of Decriminalized Nature, Michigan, he says this has been used in so many cultures, and we really want to focus on the rights of cultures, of indigenous cultures, of BIPOC, which stands for Black, Indigenous, and People of Color, communities that use these substances, and we want to make it available for all people, he said. He organized EntheaFest with the UM Student Association of Psychedelic Studies and said that he has personally experienced and witnessed in others the benefits of entheogens on physical and mental health.
Me too.
He said, I came down with an autoimmune disease that my grandfather had, and he had lost his eyesight. I started to lose my eyesight, and subsequently, a lot of the doctors here in the United States couldn't help me with what was going on. So I went down to Peru and tried some of the plant medicines, and I haven't had any issues, or any of the issues that a lot of the doctors said I was going to have happen. He says that was 6 years ago. I guess I'm curious to know, unfortunately, this story doesn't go into more of his story, but that does make me curious, like, what happened? I mean, like,
did he regain his eyesight?
Yeah, that we don't get that
Or maybe
detail.
it just he didn't keep regressing like his dad.
Maybe it didn't get worse, you mean?
Yeah.
State senators, again, introduced the bill which would propose statewide decriminalizations of entheogens, which you just mentioned. Quote, the substances have medicinal value, they have religious significance, and they have a very low propensity for abuse, said one of the state senators, Jeff Irwin from Ann Arbor. He said further, and so that's why I'm proposing to decriminalize the substance, because it really makes no sense to spend any time or money arresting people and turning their lives upside down. They worked closely with Decriminalized Nature and spoke at the event. He said, one of the organizers said further, quote, the bill is not about the corporatization of creating dispensaries. It's about making it available for people that need to have that protection to use it for their culture, and for people who want the efficacy of those things, he said. Michigan isn't the only state where entheogens are gaining traction among the general population. Silicon Valley executives, including Steve Jobs, made national news for microdosing shrooms to help with their productivity and creativity.
Wait, I had heard about Silicon Valley people taking it and like one of them getting fired for it, but I didn't know
Really?
Steve Jobs did.
Yeah, wasn't he like the head of Apple at one point?
Yeah, I didn't know
I think he passed away.
Yeah, but I didn't know that he was doing like shrooms.
I think that, if I recall correctly, Steve Jobs was he at some point publicly admitted taking LSD as well. And I believe he said it was one of the 3 most important experiences he ever had in his life.
Well, I don't really know anything about him.
Well, very successful, computer mogul. And there's now a legal psychedelic water on the market touted by music industry moguls. Huh. I don't know what that means. Psychedelic water. From a business angle, the founder is hoping to lobby the government, the founder of Psychedelic Water, to go further than the decriminalization of entheogens. He wants to legalize them. He said there's just ignorance around psychedelics because if it's something that's criminal, people think that it's bad or dangerous, and they don't have the opportunity to enjoy it because it is illegal. And further, because it's illegal, there's more of a chance that you're going to, if you do try to acquire some of this stuff, there's more of a chance you're going to get something that's not what it's being marketed as. There's a chance you're going to buy something that's being sold as LSD, but it's in point of fact something completely different.
Wow, this looks really cool. I googled it. It
Psychedelic
says,
water?
Yes, it says the world's first. It says the world's first, a mild mood boosting psychedelic blend crafted to loosen you up and excite your senses. Our mild psychoactive blend of kava, damiana, and green tea, tingles your tongue but won't leave you hungover or jittery. Psychedelic water makes me feel good and expands my creativity while in the studio or on tour, and it says it's legal. I could order it right here if I wanted to.
It's kava?
K-A-V-A?
K-A-V-A? I've heard of that before.
Kava,
I don't know a lot about it, though.
Damiana, D-A-M-I-N, D-A-M-I-A-N-A. And green tea. And it's got a really pretty bottle.
And I bet he would want to have like a mushroom version or something like that. Although if you've ever tasted liquid psilocybin and it doesn't mix really well with water, so you'd have to really cover it up.
It says legal psychedelics in sparkling water.
And this is marketed anywhere? That's amazing.
Like it's saying like, or it didn't say are you 21 and older. It just said, do you want 10% off? And there's buy now.
There's ignorance around psychedelics, he says, and again, that's because people are afraid to try them out, and they should be, because the black market is a dangerous place to buy things like this. Now, if you're going on darknet marketplace websites, you're much more likely to get the actual, like the real McCoy, the actual psychedelic that you're ordering, because those people are in open competition with one another. Those dealers on the darknet markets are competing with each other, so they're more likely to actually sell you the real thing. But either way, having them decriminalized or legalized is going to lead to a more reliable marketplace where you can actually get the things that you're looking for. And if you're getting what you're actually buying, then that leads to more safety, because then you're, well, actually putting what you're expecting into your body. And you can measure it better if it's being sold on a legal marketplace. And microdosing is interesting. I've experimented with that myself as well. Just... I've certainly done trip-level doses of things like mushrooms, and I've done, a quarter of a dose or so. Enough to notice the effects, but not be able, not go to the point where you have to go curl up in a ball and not talk to people. Like, you can actually still continue to interact and maybe get things done. It's interesting. You can share your experiences with microdosing or whatever you want to talk about here on Free Talk Live. Coming up, we'll tell you more.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The S&P 500 has posted its worst trading day since May. September has been a tough month thus far for U.S. stocks, and Monday's sell-off was fueled by concerns over China's property market. William Denzelo reports from New York.
Asian markets fell sharply on Monday on fears that China's biggest property developer Evergrande Group could default on its debt. That concern was shared on Wall Street, with the S&P 500 closing the day down at 1.7%, its worst daily performance since mid-May. The Dow fell 1.8%, registering its worst trading day since July. The Nasdaq also fell 2.2%. US investors are also eagerly awaiting news out of the Federal Reserve's two-day meeting that kicks off on Tuesday.
The Biden administration says it will lift the ban on fully vaccinated foreigners traveling to the U.S. from the EU and UK in November. Travelers will need to show proof of vaccination and a negative coronavirus test 3 days before coming to the U.S. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
This is a major diplomatic victory for the EU and the UK, who've been trying to end this travel ban for the last 18 months. It comes on the eve of a meeting between UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and US President Joe Biden, and many people feel that perhaps it has been done as a kind of a thank you to the UK for helping the US to sign a deal with Australia for building new nuclear-powered submarines, a deal that had been going to France. Another reason perhaps that the Biden administration decided to do this, the French have been very angry about what they see as a betrayal, and this now opens up the US to French citizens and those in the rest of the European Union.
Canadians are voting in a hotly contested general election to decide if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will serve another term in office. Nick Harper in Toronto says one issue is key in this election.
The big issue for voters in this election is the cost of living. Many people are angered by the fact that they have seen prices rise dramatically in recent months and in recent years. We currently have inflation at an 18-year high. House prices have risen 70% during the 6 years that Justin Trudeau has been in power, and his rivals say that he has done a terrible job with the economy, that he's racked up record levels of debt, about $1 trillion Canadian trying to fight the pandemic, and that his spending budget deficits are now at the highest level since the Second World War. People are also worried about climate change and about COVID-19, but it seems that the price of things is quite simply at the top of many voters' minds as they head to the ballot box.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today looking in more depth at the fury of the French over last week's announcement of a new defence partnership between the US, the UK and Australia. It undermined years of negotiations between Paris and Canberra. And French President Emmanuel Macron was, US officials concede, given no advanced warning that the agreement had been sealed at the cost to France of its largest defence contract.
Have been stabbed in the back by our closest allies.
Gérard Darrot is a former French ambassador to the United States. He says the anger in Paris is real and runs deep.
For us, the contract was the basis of an Indo-Pacific strategy. We considered that Australia was the pillar of our Indo-Pacific presence. Macron and the previous president went to Australia, 20 hours of flight. We had a lot of meetings between ministers. Our navies were training together. Suddenly, the strategic partnership is thrown away, and we discover that our closest allies have been plotting not only to take the contract, but also to exclude us from the partnership.
It is still very unclear why the Biden administration gave the French no warning of the announcement, nor why President Biden himself failed to address the issue directly when he met President Macron at the G7 in Cornwall earlier this summer. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The S&P 500 posts its worst trading day since May, fueled by concerns over China's property market. The Biden administration says it will lift the ban on fully vaccinated foreigners traveling to the U.S. from 33 countries in November. And Canadians are voting in a general election to decide if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will serve another term. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
A fully leveled up video game character marvels at how far he's come, and the milk rushing through a jug handle is having the time of its life. This is The Onion Week in Review. This week, top executives from the U.S. financial sector announced they're about ready to ruin the world again. Representatives from all major banking and investment institutions said that more than enough time has passed since they last caused a major global economic meltdown, and confirmed they're pretty much fully prepared to bring about a brand new worldwide financial crisis.
We feel like we've given people enough time to get comfortable again. Consumer spending has increased, housing market has rebounded. So yeah, we're all set to go ahead and ruin the global economy again.
And in other news, the perfect gift for a local man is unfortunately a gift certificate to Lowe's Cinemas. Mall shoppers look on in awe as a helpless 15-year-old girl is viciously torn apart by a pack of her peers. And a drunk pilot decides to pull over onto a cloud until he sobers up. You will now hear 3 gong strikes and a recitation of the great chant before being ushered to the hallowed garden. For more, keep checking theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour of the program here. We were discussing the Detroit ballot measure that's going to be appearing in November this year to give Detroiters the opportunity to decriminalize, make the lowest police enforcement priority, that is to say, regarding psychedelic plants.
Well, they call it entheogenic plants and fungi. Is there a difference, like a big difference?
No, entheogen is the newer term. So psychedelic kind of has all this baggage associated with it, like, oh my God, psychedelic, somebody's going to trip and jump out a window. Whereas entheogen is a much more newer terminology. As you mentioned earlier, it stands for the God within. So it's a much more descriptive term as far as the spiritual aspect of taking something like magic mushrooms. Because you can take a psychedelic or an entheogen for just to get high with your friends, but you can also take it for, an introspective spiritual journey. And personally, that's what I prefer to take these things for. When I have done that, unfortunately, I'm on some bail conditions right now that prohibit me from doing those sorts of things. But over my lifetime, I have done those things. And I appreciate the spiritual aspect of it. So entheogen speaks more to that, whereas psychedelics like, whoa, crazy. It sounds a little bit more wild and dangerous when you use that term. So we're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts. It's Ian and
Bonnie
in the studio with you. Angie is on the line, one of our co-hosts here on Free Talk Live, calling in. Angie, what's on your mind?
I wanted to ask some questions about the administration or the use of the psychedelic drops in end of life aspects. So if someone is coming to the end of their life for a terminal illness or because death is approaching, they treat people with psychedelic drops. Do you guys know anything about that or how that works or why they do that?
Yeah, I have heard about this, and one of the reasons why they do it is because, well, again, like we were just discussing, the term entheogen, meaning the God within, that can be a very spiritual, taking something like psychedelics, including magic mushrooms, including LSD, DMT. Some of these things are very profound spiritual experiences, and it can take somebody who sort of standard human experience is to be afraid of death. We're raised to be afraid to die. And the experience that somebody can have on one of these drugs, and I imagine under specific therapeutic settings, it's more likely to occur, that the experience somebody can have is to become okay with it, to kind of, whether or not it's meeting your maker, so to speak, it's the idea of realizing that everything's going to be okay and that maybe there is something for our, whatever the energy or the soul is within our bodies, maybe there's something more. After this, I can't speak to exactly the experience that each individual has, but it's been known that a psychedelic experience or an entheogenic experience can help somebody come to terms with the fact that they are mortal and that this experience on Earth is going to end and be more okay with it. They've definitely found that to be the case.
Do you know what scientific reasons that happens? Like what happens in their brain or what happens with their body when they do that?
No, I don't. I mean, generally, there's like sort of the generic statement that doing things like an entheogen is going to allow sort of neuro pathways or whatever to connect that otherwise wouldn't. You become more aware of things that you otherwise would not be aware of, whether that be patterns in nature or whether that be processes within your own mind, connections that you didn't perhaps notice before. So it does open up different pathways, and whatever that does to the brain is probably a factor in why people can come to these new conclusions.
I appreciate that, because I have a family member who is nearing the end, and she is afraid. And so it's something that I wanted to suggest, but I didn't have like a good reason or an argument, I guess, per se, to tell her, hey, maybe you should just think about trying this.
I would look for some stories online. There's a ton of stuff at arrowhead.org, of course, which is my favorite go-to website for doing research.
You can find personal stories of people within each category of drugs on arrowhead.com.
Okay.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if there were some end-of-life kind of coming to grips stories available there. If not, just look around for, say, mushrooms. As far as making a recommendation, again, I always got to throw the disclaimer out there. Do your research. Right. Take the time to learn about this stuff. Learn what risks there might be. But the good news about magic mushrooms is they are relatively low risk when compared to other drugs. They are relatively short-acting when, as far as trips are concerned.
And you can sleep after.
Yes, and you can sleep afterwards. I do not recommend LSD for somebody that's an inexperienced psychonaut or whatever, somebody that's never done anything like this before. It ultimately was the first entheogen that I ever did, and I'm not going to say it wasn't a bad, most of the times I've done it, it's been a pretty good experience. But the problem with LSD is it is so long. You really have to invest a very long time in that particular drug. I've never done an ayahuasca trip before. I've heard that is particularly good with coming to grips with, things in your life, bad things in your life, not just, the potential for death, but other challenges that somebody might be having. I've heard the people that have done these ayahuasca journeys have raved about them. And again, these are also very, very powerful experiences. So if there's some sort of negativity in your life, that could very well bubble and likely will bubble to the surface, and you will have to confront whatever kind of demons, quote unquote, you might have. And some people are not going to be ready for that kind of an experience, which is why you need to have, especially with ayahuasca, you need to have a guide, a shaman or whatever to guide you through that. It's not just something that you can, just take a dose of and go for it. You have to really be very cautious with something like that. And from what I understand, that can last for a very, very long time as well. So the nice thing about mushrooms is it's something that you can probably more easily acquire. They're pretty common out there in like darknet marketplaces, for instance. Some people have a difficult time consuming them, in which case you may want to look for liquid psilocybin, which makes it a lot easier to consume. It makes it more easy to measure the doses with. And just having a sitter there, somebody who has maybe some experience, of course, is ideal. But the nice thing about mushrooms, as Bonnie pointed out, is you can go to sleep afterwards. You're going to be tired. You're going to be hungry. Whereas LSD, as good as it can be, it's like, oh my God, anybody that's ever done LSD, how bad the sleep is after that. It doesn't even feel like you're sleeping. And then the next day you're completely zonked, whereas the next day after a mushroom journey and a good night's sleep, you're feeling good. You're waking up feeling refreshed. You're ready to move on to whatever is coming next. At least that's been my experience. Obviously, everyone's different. So again, that's where the whole research angle comes in. So,
all right, I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Angie. Good luck, and thanks for the call tonight. By the way, I did a little search here, and I found out that the the little Entheo Fest that they had in Ann Arbor, according to mlive.com, which is a Michigan website for news, not only did it surpass 500 people, but they say thousands of people attended the very first ever Psychedelic Shroom Festival yesterday at the University of Michigan Diag for Ann Arbor's EntheoFest.
Yeah, I saw a picture and it looked like a lot of people sitting out. It almost looked like kind of like a city square, but I guess it was a college campus.
Mm-hmm.
A whole bunch of people just sitting out on blankets.
No issues or arrests, according to University of Michigan Police. The 3-hour event celebrated the 1-year anniversary of Ann Arbor's move to declare entheogenic plants and fungi the city's lowest law enforcement priority. That includes ayahuasca, ibogaine, mescaline, peyote, psilocybin mushrooms, and other natural compounds with hallucinogenic properties. They had speakers, of course, including the senators who are proposing the statewide decriminalization bill, as well as some others. So good on them. I'm glad to see that particular event went off very, very well. Whether you want to comment on end of life, maybe you've got a personal experience you want to explain to Angie, our last caller there. She's looking into, what to do, how to get somebody to kind of come to grips with the fact that we're all going to be gone someday. More coming up here in moments. This is Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Free Talk Live.
Well, the ones that seek to destroy all nations in order to bring about a global domination of a one-world government, the biggest weapon that they have is rock and roll.
Isn't rock and roll dead?
You laugh.
Rock and roll's been dead for years.
It's embarrassed laughter because you know it's true.
Okay,
He's living in 1970.
Wait a second.
The origin of rock and roll is in voodoo. The devil created rock and roll, and it's used to rob man of his freedom. And you cannot go into a department store or any store in the U.S., any public space in the U.S., without hearing the African drums of voodoo. And it's used...
That is the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can get your tickets for Liberty in Our Lifetime. It's happening in Mulheim, Switzerland, hosted by the Free Private Cities Foundation. Early bird tickets were through today, so whether that's still available or not, I am not certain. You may be just on the cusp of being able to get those. If you're listening to us on podcast, you're probably too late, but you can still go and get the regular price tickets over at lifetimeliberty.com. Liberty in Our Lifetime aims to explore projects happening right now around the world that are working to achieve a lofty goal of securing freedom in our lifetime. Speakers will be from Crypto Valley, Prospera, the Seasteading Institute, and more at this October 16th event. So it's coming up fast. But maybe you don't want to actually physically go to Switzerland because, well, there's all kinds of ridiculous travel restrictions and mandates and vaccine requirements and all that in place. So you can just stay home and do it online. There are digital tickets available for Liberty in Our Lifetime. Again, it's happening October 16th. The tickets are available right now over at lifetimeliberty.com. You can see what people are doing all around the world to create voluntary societies with a live and let live attitude at lifetimeliberty.com. With you tonight, it's Ian.
And Bonnie.
We're talking about entheogens or aka psychedelic substances. The recent news being that Michigan has, Detroit specifically, going to be voting on decriminalization of psychedelics, plant-based ones, I should say. So LSD is not included, but plant-based psychedelics will possibly be decriminalized in the city of Detroit. They, of course, are already decriminalized in several other cities across the United States. Ann Arbor did decriminalize mushrooms last year as well. So if you want to comment on that, that led to a larger discussion about the sort of medical uses and the spiritual uses of entheogenic substances like psychedelic mushrooms. And we're going to go to Riley, who's on the line in Utah. You're on Free Talk Live, Riley.
Hey guys, you mentioned ayahuasca earlier, and I wanted to talk about my experience with ayahuasca. I took ayahuasca. I participated in 2 ayahuasca ceremonies last year, back to back.
Wow.
Before coming to New Hampshire last year.
Where are those happening? I mean, I know you live in Utah, which doesn't really like scream out a place where you can go to take ayahuasca, as, you know, with all the Mormons around. Was it in Utah, or did you have to travel somewhere for this?
I actually did it in Utah. Wow. I knew the right people, and it's kind of an underground operation. So, my experiences with psychedelics, since I'm blind, are not visual. A lot of auditory hallucinations can occur, mental hallucinations, that sort of thing. And so it's just a different experience than I'm going to take psychedelics for a visual experience. For me, it's definitely a spiritual odyssey and an emotional experience as well. They've been very therapeutic. I first took mushrooms in ceremony back in January of last year, and that was also a very healing experience. The reason why I like taking psychedelics in ceremony is that there is someone there to guide you. You're generally in a group of people taking the same substance, and it's just a better experience. I know when I took psychedelics the first time, the shaman there gave us some ground rules we had to follow, and so those have always stuck in my mind, taking psychedelics. Or
what are some of the ground rules? I mean, like, go ahead and, you know, give us the top 3 or whatever ones you want to, you know, share with us.
Just some ground rules that they had us observe is don't touch anyone unless you have their consent, because consent's important. Another one is they told us to leave the bathroom door open.
Okay.
Or not open, but unlocked, so they could get in and get us if something happened.
Makes sense.
And the other one I remember is they didn't want us to have our cell phones with us in the space, and they told us to keep our shoes off so we didn't go running outside or whatever. So those are some ground rules that I remember, and I try and stick with as much as possible unless I'm with somebody that my trip sitter.
How large were the groups that you were in?
I don't remember how large the group I was in that took mushrooms, but I think the group I was in that took ayahuasca was about 28 people.
Wow.
So a fairly good sized group.
And, of 28 people, did anybody have like a real bad time that had to kind of, be dealt with in some way? Or was it pretty uneventful as far as that goes?
It was pretty uneventful as far as people having a really, really bad time. I know I had a rough experience my second night, but, ultimately I got through it.
Now, you say your second night. Does that mean you're doing one dose on one night and then another dose the next night? This is like a weekend-long thing? Or tell us about the kind of the process.
So the process was that it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday sort of experience. So Friday night, we took ayahuasca. We took a dose of ayahuasca, or as much as we needed for that night. Then we did the same thing Saturday night. And then Sunday, they gave us something called San Pedro or Wachuma, which contains mescaline, which is found in peyote as well.
Oh, wow.
And
that was a hell of a weekend.
That was a day ceremony. Yeah, it was a hell of a weekend for us, for sure. And it was pretty intense. But it was very healing. I think the most important thing after a psychedelic experience isn't the experience itself, it's the integration process, because the integration process gives you the opportunity to sit back, reflect about your experience, journal about it, and get to grips with what happened to you, because, tripping is such an intense experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I guess, can you tie in any way with what Angie's question was earlier about end of life? Did you have any kind of spiritual revelations about that during any of your trips?
I don't know if I had spiritual revelations about end of life necessarily, but I did encounter what I would consider God, and it basically was a very loving experience rather than an experience of judgment.
Wow. What would you say
That's the only thing I can comment about the end of life. Go ahead, Bonnie.
I was going to say, what would you say was the most important thing that you learned from your experience?
That's a tough question.
Trust the experience. Trust the medicine. Trust the process.
Wow. Love it. Anything else you want to share tonight, Riley? Really interesting call.
I think the most important thing for people to remember is if you're going to take psychedelics for spiritual or healing purposes, remember they are tools. They're not a substitute for any sort of practice. I think it's important to have a practice as you come out of the experience rather than just relying on the medicine or the tool itself.
Like you said, the integration, taking some time to reflect the next day, for instance. Is that generally how you do it?
Yep, next day, next few days, next week, month, year, sometimes. It just depends.
Awesome. Riley, thanks for sharing your thoughts here tonight. Look forward to seeing you when
You're
you come
welcome.
out for your visit here to New Hampshire. Thanks for the call.
All right, I look forward to it too.
Yeah. It was one of my questions for him when he first told me that he had done mushrooms. Like, what's that like as a blind person? Because in a lot of cases, these things are very visual experiences. But for him, he didn't all of a sudden see things he wouldn't have seen before. He didn't restore his vision or anything like that, or give him patterns. Like a lot of people get very strong closed-eye visuals with these things. But like he said, a very spiritual experience and a very moving one. So fascinating stuff. You can share your experiences here with us on Free Talk Live on Magic Mushroom Day. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Wagner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The S&P 500 has posted its worst trading day since May. September has been a tough month thus far for U.S. stocks, and Monday's sell-off was fueled by concerns over China's property market. William Denzilo reports from New York.
Asian markets fell sharply on Monday on fears that China's biggest property developer Evergrande Group could default on its debt. That concern was shared on Wall Street, with the S&P 500 closing the day down at 1.7%, its worst daily performance since mid-May. The Dow fell 1.8%, registering its worst trading day since July. The Nasdaq also fell 2.2%. US investors are also eagerly awaiting news out of the Federal Reserve's two-day meeting that kicks off on Tuesday.
The Biden administration says it will lift the ban on fully vaccinated foreigners traveling to the U.S. from the EU and UK in November. Travelers will need to show proof of vaccination and a negative coronavirus test 3 days before coming to the U.S. Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
This is a major diplomatic victory for the EU and the UK, who've been trying to end this travel ban for the last 18 months. It comes on the eve of a meeting between UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson and US President Joe Biden, and many people feel that perhaps it has been done as a kind of a thank you to the UK for helping the US to sign a deal with Australia for building new nuclear-powered submarines, a deal that had been going to France. Another reason, perhaps, that the Biden administration decided to do this, the French have been very angry about what they see as a betrayal, and this now opens up the US to French citizens and those in the rest of the European Union.
Canadians are voting in a hotly contested general election to decide if Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will serve another term in office. Nick Harper in Toronto says one issue is key in this election.
The big issue for voters in this election is the cost of living. Many people are angered by the fact that they have seen prices rise dramatically in recent months and in recent years. We currently have inflation at an 18-year high. House prices have risen 70% during the 6 years that Justin Trudeau has been in power, and his rivals say that he has done a terrible job with the economy, that he's racked up record levels of debt, about $1 trillion Canadian dollars, trying to fight the pandemic, and that his spending budget deficits are now at the highest level since the Second World War. People are also worried about climate change and about COVID-19, but it seems that the price of things is quite simply at the top of many voters' minds as they head to the ballot box.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up what you want here. We were just talking with Riley, who is, I should have mentioned, he's the guy that does the Free Talk Live Daily Digest. So if you subscribe to the Free Talk Live podcast, which you can go to feeds.freetalklive.com, and you can find our podcast links there. You can subscribe, and one of the things that comes out pretty much every day is Riley's, basically his 20, 30-minute long cut of our full show. So he picks the things that he thinks are the most interesting from the show, and he makes a daily digest. And so he's pretty consistent at doing that. And so thank you, Riley, for providing that for us on a daily basis. But he was just telling us about his ayahuasca journey that he's done. It sounded like more than once. It's basically a weekend-long trip where you do ayahuasca once on a Friday night, then you do it again on Saturday, and then
you do peyote.
Apparently, mescaline or something on the third day. And he said it's been a real benefit to him spiritually. And I've got a story here, Bonnie, that is related to that. I've actually been holding on to this for about a month now. I'm glad to have an excuse to talk about it. It's from Bloomberg.com Business Week. All-inclusive magic mushroom retreats are the new luxury, quote, trips. So, Elisa...
Wait, so there was old luxury trips? Oh, I
quote,
see.
trips.
Okay, I get it. Like trips like vacation.
So people have figured out they can turn this into a real industry. Now, that was one question I didn't think to ask Riley was, hey, what'd this cost you? Because I wanted to focus on his experience. But it does make me curious. Like, he just did some sort of underground thing. So I imagine it wasn't much more than the cost of, the drugs and then maybe some sort of fee to stay in this place, right? Because he was there for the weekend. So there's obviously a cost involved in running any of these things, but some of them are getting luxurious, like to the point of pretty ridiculous sounding, and that's what the story's about. Elisa Bigham was looking for a new beginning. She'd recently left her marriage of 47 years and was trying to understand who she was outside of that union. She says, I kept having the thought, you just need to go on a retreat and get away from everything, she said. My intention was a reset of who I am, something that could bring me a big transformation.
So she left Earth.
Bigham, 64, had read Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, which chronicles the new research into psychedelics and their medicinal properties. She came away from it interested in exploring those possibilities for herself. So she booked a retreat at Silo Wellness, which operates in Jamaica's Montego Bay resort community. And I should note that my understanding is psychedelic mushrooms are legal in Jamaica. So that would be why this is happening there.
Nice.
She was drawn to its nightly ceremonies, during which participants take psilocybin mushrooms and, led by local Rastafarians, embark on a series of transcendental journeys that might include visions and an altered emotional state. The mushrooms can have a bitter, earthy taste, so honey was also provided for those who wanted a chaser. After the first trip, she felt profoundly, fundamentally changed. She said, it was like I'd found my superpower, she said. Bigham's experience is becoming more and more common as a new breed of retreat is offering not only the lush surroundings, pleasant accommodations, and well-prepared food of high-end vacations, but also the spiritual healing and metaphysical self-discovery of guided plant-based psychedelic experiences. Colloquially, they're called trips, though most practitioners prefer the term journey. At the all-inclusive Sotala Healing Center, amidst 22 acres near the Gulf of Nicoya in Costa Rica, stays run from $2,600 to $8,900, depending on the length of the journey and the room style that you choose. The main event of the itinerary, which ranges from 5 to 12 nights, isn't a boozy luau or snorkeling excursion, but an ayahuasca ceremony led by native Shipibo healers.
Wow.
Now, this is interesting because, on one hand, it's like, oh, shocking, look at how much money this is. On the other hand, people shell out this kind of money to go on vacations all over the place. So it's interesting that they're tying in now a journey, like a spiritual journey, into these what would otherwise be just resort kind of vacations.
Instead of just doing lame alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. And there have been, and then making decisions you're going to, you might regret later.
Yeah.
But one of the things some people have regretted with some of these ayahuasca journeys is some people have gone into like the jungle of South America trying to find these supposed ayahuasca journeys and then getting ripped off and like getting robbed.
Oh my goodness.
So if you're going to an all-inclusive resort, you're paying quite a bit of money for likely going to be a safe experience. You're not going to, you're already paying a lot of money. You're not going to get robbed, and thrown into the woods or something like that. In Vancouver, the Journeyman Collective focuses on imparting spiritual well-being into the corporate world. Their guided mushroom ceremonies, in which 2 to 5 grams of psychoactive fungi are blended with gourmet chocolate, are held at local lodgings and aimed at helping business leaders and executive teams align their companies with a greater purpose. Gary Logan founded the Journeyman Collective in 2018 with his husband, Robert Grover, and says the goal is to make guests feel taken care of. We want to cradle you, nurture you, and guide you through this process. We want people to relax and rest into the medicine and not worry if there's a tarantula on their face.
Oh my God.
And I guess that's a reference to just,
going into the actual
forest.
woods. Oh, that's so scary.
Douglas Gordon, Chief Executive Officer of Silo Wellness, says his retreat is in line with the changing notions of luxury. Quote, real luxury is being able to wear flip-flops to dinner. It's not necessarily black tie, it's about an authentic experience like, do you want to go to that amazing jerk chicken place down the road? That's the type of person we want to attract, someone who puts value into experiences.
We have an amazing jerk chicken place down the road here.
It's true. Psychedelics in the public sphere have undergone a profound shift in recent years, sometimes referred to as the shroom boom. In a short time, the thinking has evolved from viewing them as recreational drugs to understanding the experiences as therapeutic, with an array of potential benefits. The year before Pollan published his 2018 book, which covers research demonstrating that substances like DMT, which is the active ingredient in ayahuasca, LSD, and psilocybin may ameliorate the effects of PTSD, depression, and addiction, which is something we touched briefly on earlier in this show. We didn't get deep into the different studies, but suffice it to say there have been various studies done within the last 2 decades on all of these drugs regarding those maladies, and they have been very effective. Writer Ayelet Waldman published A Really Good Day, chronicling the deeply positive effects for her of microdosing, which was taking extremely small amounts of LSD daily. More recently, Netflix's The Goop Lab followed employees at Gwyneth Paltrow's lifestyle website as they flew to Jamaica and took part in a psychedelic healing session that included lots of laughing, crying, and writhing around on the floor. Podcaster Joe Rogan is also a vocal advocate of ayahuasca. Already it appears there's serious money to be made. According to DataBridge Market Research, the psychedelic market is projected to reach $10.7 billion. And I presume they mean the legal psychedelic market here, which is expected to reach $10.7 billion by 2027, which is up from $3.8 billion just last year.
Wow.
Travel entrepreneurs are looking on with interest. Quote, the wellness industry continues to grow in size and importance in consumers' lives post-pandemic, said the head of insights for WGSN, Joe McDonnell, saying further, staying healthy mentally and physically is a top priority. A study published in November of last year by Research and Markets valued the overall wellness tourism industry at $735.8 billion by 2027. They said it would be $1.2 trillion.
I'm interested, and maybe I'll ask Riley if I get to meet him when he comes here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to know what these guides and shamans, what do they say to you? Like, I don't really know if I would prefer that over doing it alone, because I like where my mind goes. I don't really have, issues, I don't think, with, going down a dark rabbit hole. I don't like to look at my...
Have you ever had a bad trip?
I don't like looking at my face in the mirror because I feel like I look like a worm. Or like a dead body. It's creepy.
Oh my God.
Sorry, not to creep anyone out, but
okay.
That's the only thing. I don't like to look in the mirror on shrooms. But anyways, it just makes me wonder, what do these people say to you? Because I like where my mind goes. I remember watching K-pop music videos on shrooms and then just thinking, wow, women are fantastic. Women are goddesses, and I love being a woman. For a week after.
Wow. It's an interesting experience, and I think for a lot of people, the shaman experience is something that you definitely want to do the first time. You always want to trip the first time with somebody who has experience. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Here with you tonight, it's Ian.
And Bonnie.
If you want to jump in the remaining moments and comment on psychedelics, a.k.a. entheogens, that's actually what we've been talking about for most of the night. And we still have time for you. The number is 603-283-6160. It is Magic Mushroom Day. Apparently that's a thing now on September 20th. So we are not quite half a year away from April 20th, but several months from April 20th. So this is sort of the other, I guess, related holiday, if you will.
I didn't even think about that at all.
And
it's kind of, it's almost the, the equinox, fall equinox.
Yeah, I think that's like basically right now, right? Tomorrow?
Yeah, I guess.
Right
and
now,
it's
tomorrow?
full moon.
So good time for it. EntheoFest attracted thousands of people. A first-time event in Ann Arbor, Michigan over the weekend, which was, again, all about promoting psychedelics and, of course, the safe use of psychedelics. And I keep using that term because I'm still used to it, but I do like the term entheogen better. It's just a more descriptive term. You were just talking, Bonnie, about how you aren't so sure regarding the idea of going on a journey with a shaman. Like, you were wondering kind of what is the purpose, or what does that bring? What is the benefit to that?
Yeah, I'd like to know about the shaman first, not just like, oh, he's a shaman, he's a healer. I'd like to know exactly what he believes in and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know that I would want somebody like preaching to me while I'm tripping.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Like, I've not ever done anything like that. Certainly, the first time I did trip, I tripped with somebody else who had tripped before. So that, to me, is, I think that's the most important component, is to be there with somebody that knows you and cares about you and wants you to have a positive experience. You probably don't know the shaman, likely, that you're going to see in whatever situation that you're going to, so that could probably feel weird for some people. In our chat room over at chat.freetalklive.com, Inkblot says, you don't need no shaman, F that.
And he says, DMT is for wine ants.
As in, like...
It's the most powerful hallucinogenic in the world.
Yeah, I don't know what he means by DMT is for wine aunts, but DMT is an incredible experience, and if you're interested in things like entheogens, it's definitely one worth trying. Of course, DMT is the short-acting version. Usually it's a smoked or vaporized thing, whereas ayahuasca is many, many, many hours in length, and apparently even more, like, spiritually important, like, because you're not just going away. It's not just ending in 10 minutes. Like, you're down for the count with ayahuasca for hours. And if there's, like I said before, there's something bad in your mind or whatever in your life, some sort of trauma, it's coming up likely, and you're going to have to confront it.
And that's why you should do shadow work sober.
And maybe that's one of the reasons why a shaman is valuable in something like an ayahuasca trip, because it is supposedly so intense. And so I imagine people that have had those experiences could speak to that, whether it's tonight at 603-283-6160 or later. Riley is coming out to visit, so that maybe that is a question we can ask him when he gets in here, as he'll likely be co-hosting with us when he comes out. But we were just talking about this story from Bloomberg News. It came out last month, and it's about an interesting kind of expansion in the psychedelic, quote, industry, if you will. These trip experiences have moved into luxury resorts. So they get into that here in the story, like, this sort of evolution, if you will, of where this industry's gone and where it's come from. Solara, so they're talking about some of these different places. One of them's in Jamaica, another one's in Costa Rica. They're using magic mushrooms at one place, they're using ayahuasca at another to take people who are willing to spend thousands of dollars on a resort experience on a journey, a spiritual journey. Soltara may lack the 5-star indulgences of, say, Utah's decadent Amangiri Resort, but its rooms are comfortably Spartan and airy, the meals thoughtfully prepared, and the pool azure blue. If these perks seem at odds with the spiritual quests at hand, there's a reason. Melissa Stangl, a founding partner at Soltara and its chief operating officer, says that while working at a rustic retreat in a remote corner of the Peruvian jungle, she noticed the clientele had a specific adventure-seeking demographic, aka backpackers, because it's out in the middle of nowhere. She said the sanctuary's remoteness, she realized, limited its client base. So when Soltara opened in June of 2018, it chose the more established tourist infrastructure of Costa Rica, with lodging that leans toward the elegant, an effort to appeal to a broader swath of potential customers.
I bet those backpackers in Peru were going out looking for giant elongated skulls.
That's getting into a totally different discussion, Bonnie. This work can be uncomfortable, she says, of the ayahuasca ceremonies. It's not uncommon for those who drink it to vomit, for example. In fact, that's pretty standard from what I understand.
Wow.
Being able to provide a space that's comfortable for guests where they don't have to worry about the danger they might feel in a remote part of the jungle is important. We found that when they're at ease, they're more able to open up to the medicine. At Silo, Gordon oversees a retreat where each session is individually tailored to the person or group attending. They offer specific bookings geared toward women, fitness enthusiasts, or the LGBTQ community. On average, they cost $3,995 per person, or $6,400 per couple, and are hosted at local villas or other high-end accommodations. By offering an elevated travel experience, he's found clients are able to more fully embrace the overwhelming and, by some accounts, exhausting aspects of the core experience, the guided mushroom journey. He says we're trying to achieve that balance that speaks to luxury, the food, environment, and the service. Often, intentions are set during introductory rituals, and there are integration practices afterward to help process the experience and incorporate the insights into one's everyday life.
I like that idea, but I don't think you need a shaman for it. Setting an intention for before you go into a trip.
That's one of the most important things, is to have a good set and setting,
And part of the set and setting is your intention, like your mindset going into something like this. If you are bothered by something, if there's something that's angering you or upsetting you, you're not feeling good, don't do it. Put it off until a different day when you're more at ease and you're ready to go into this experience. I can't imagine how bad a trip you could have if you go into something that's, as intense as an entheogenic experience with negative mindset. So being ready for it is important, and having a good place where you feel comfortable. And that's part of what they're doing here. They're trying to create a place where these folks feel comfortable, who many of them have probably never had this experience before. So you've done an entheogenic substance before. If you've done it before, you have some idea of what to expect, and you're more able to do it more independently, I think, in that case. These are people who maybe their entire lives have never encountered anything like this. And I can understand why people want their hand held. And I think that's important. Despite their growing prominence in the zeitgeist, psychedelics, it should be said, are still illegal in most parts of the world, limiting the market scale of this wellness niche. Currently, Jamaica and the Netherlands, where the British Psychedelic Society has been offering psilocybin-based retreats since 2016, are primary destinations because of their liberal laws around psychoactive substances. Options are popping up in locations like Canada, Mexico, and even the U.S. The Sacred House of Eden organizes retreats from its headquarters in Denver, the first American city to decriminalize psilocybin mushrooms. Quote, experiences that adopt holistic approaches to healing, balancing psychedelic experiences with more traditional wellness experiences like yoga therapy, are gaining popularity as people seek to rebalance after stresses of 2 years of lockdown, he said. Bigham, who attended the Silo retreat, recalls sitting on pillows and blankets during her mushroom journeys, a total of 3 during her 5-day women's retreat hosted at the plush Half Moon Resort, all while looking out over the ocean or gazing at the stars.
Wow.
Her days were filled with yoga classes or seminars on nutrition before the nightly trips from about 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. Meals were taken on a patio overlooking the sea. There was barely time to take a dip in the on-site pool. She went in with a small but meaningful goal in mind. She said, I felt like I was so self-conscious that I couldn't close my bedroom door and dance by myself. She said, I want to go to Jamaica and I want to dance. We went out to this Rastafarian village and they were playing drums, and I said, hey, ask them if they'll teach us how to dance, and they taught us how to dance.
Aww.
When she returned home, her friends and family noticed a marked shift. She said, my daughter said, Mom, you're different. So then they go into like a quick rundown of some of these different places they've been talking about. The Silo Wellness, which is 5-day, 4-night sessions in Jamaica with meditation, meal planning workshops, and possibly intense workout routines if you want. In addition to psilocybin-assisted ceremonies, you're looking at a low end of $39.95. That's almost $4,000 per person. But then again, you're traveling to, Jamaica, and you're getting a full all-inclusive thing. The Journeyman Collective outside Vancouver, guided psychedelic experiences, mushrooms, coaching sessions, focused on harmony in relationships and prosperity in business, from 10 weeks to 18 months, from $30,000.
Oh my God.
And the Soltala Healing Center in Costa Rica, $2,600 per person for 5 nights. That doesn't seem too bad.
Well, I just want to say I love that for that woman, because I think that a lot of people who don't think that they like dancing, it's just because they
haven't tried it.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow night, freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com. Do you feel like you're